It was around 2:47 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of her voice. Not a scream, not a gasp, just a whisper. But it wasn't my name. That's the part that jolted me upright. I lay still at first, staring at the ceiling, heartbeat beginning to pound with that slow-building panic you can't quite name yet. I told myself I'd misheard her, that maybe it was just a dream, or maybe she said my name and the tired static in my head scrambled it. That happens, right? Brains misfire in the middle of the night. But she whispered it again. Soft. Intimate. Like a confession she thought the dark could keep secret. Eli. There it was. Clear. Crisp. Deliberate. That name didn't belong to me. I turned to look at her. My wife, asleep beside me, brow furrowed just slightly, her lips parted. She looked peaceful. Beautiful even. Like someone reliving a memory they didn't want to end. That was the first time I felt the crack. Not a full fracture. Not yet. Just a hairline line of doubt running across the foundation of everything I thought I knew. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Morning came like it always did. Coffee brewing, the dog whining to be let out, her humming some song I didn't recognize as she stood at the sink in her robe. I watched her from the hallway, waiting for something to feel off, for her to flinch when she saw me, for her to look guilty. She didn't. She turned, saw me, and smiled. Kissed me good morning like she had 1,000 times before. And in that moment, I hated how much I wanted it to mean nothing. I didn't ask about the name. I should have. I know that now. But back then, I wanted to believe. I needed to believe. Still, curiosity is a weed. It doesn't die quietly. So that evening, when she fell asleep curled into me, I slipped out of bed, padded into the hallway, and opened her laptop. No password, just like always. That made me feel a little foolish, honestly. How dangerous could secrets be if they were hiding in plain sight? The answer came faster than I was ready for. I opened her browser. Gmail. Pinterest. Nothing suspicious. Then I saw it, an Instagram account I didn't recognize. The name was nothing obvious. Just some random word with a few numbers, like a burner account someone forgot to delete. I clicked it. That's when the air left the room. There he was. Eli Whitmore. Tag after tag. Comment after comment. Dozens of photos, mostly of landscapes, a few with his dog, and every now and then, her. My wife. Smiling in ways I hadn't seen in months. Wearing outfits I'd never seen her leave the house in. I scrolled, numb. There were no outright kisses. Nothing incriminating in isolation. Just the kind of intimacy that exists between people who think they've been clever. Photos of coffee cups on the same table, different angles. Two shadows on a trail. A pair of hands, hers, resting on a book I didn't own. It wasn't proof, but it was a constellation of implication. I clicked through her comments. She was careful. Nothing romantic, just emojis, inside jokes. But I know her tone. I know her rhythm. And those weren't the kind of words you use on someone you barely know. I took a breath, opened another tab, and Googled his name. And there he was. Eli Whitmore. Freelance photographer. Former colleague from her job 2 years ago. I remembered him now vaguely. He came to a holiday party once. Tall, quiet, kind of artsy. Nothing threatening. I shook his hand and offered him a drink. His face was all over the internet. His photography page, his travel blog, even a few tag posts from her personal account that I hadn't noticed before. Photos of sunsets, cafes, bookstores, places she'd said she visited with friends. I checked dates. They lined up with the weekends she told me she needed space to clear her head. Retreats, wellness trips, girl time. I'd believed every word. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. My chest felt hollow. The kind of hollow that's not empty, but full of something heavy, like grief or disbelief. I walked back to the bedroom. She was still asleep. Peaceful again. I sat in the armchair by the window and stared at her for a long time, wondering how many lies it took to build a life that looked this stable on the outside. The truth was, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready to confront her. I wasn't even sure what I wanted. Proof? An apology? A rewind button? All I had was a name she whispered in the dark and a man whose face haunted every corner of her secret life. The next morning, I asked her about him. She didn't lie. She just paused, then said, "He's just a friend I lost touch with." But she blinked too fast when she said it. And that's when I knew there was no going back. Not to the way things were. Not to the man I used to be. Because once you hear another man's name escape from the lips of the person you trust most in the world, especially in sleep. When truth forgets to lie, you start to see everything differently. And I was just getting started. I didn't confront her. Not really. Instead, I told her I was going on a work trip. For days. Just me and the open road. She kissed me goodbye, told me to drive safe, texted me later with a heart emoji and a photo of our dog curled up on the couch. But I wasn't on a trip. I was parked 2 blocks from a coffee shop Eli had posted on his photography account the week before. Same storefront. Same ivy trailing down the sidewall. I recognized it instantly. It felt strange, how real he suddenly was. Not just a name or a face on a screen, but a man who breathed, walked, sat in cafes, and carried pieces of my wife in his memory. For an hour, I just sat there, engine off, thinking. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe I thought I'd catch them together, or maybe I just wanted to see the place for myself, to understand why she went there. But he never showed. Instead, I drove to a library and did something I hadn't done in years. I printed photos. Screenshots from the burner account, tags from his profile, images that matched dates when she said she was elsewhere. I laid them all out on a table in front of me, like evidence in a case I didn't want to win. A picture of her hands holding a vintage camera, his camera. A photo of a necklace she told me she'd bought on a solo trip. But in his photo, she's wearing it while he captions it. Gifts aren't always wrapped. A shot of 2 coffee cups, one with lipstick, her shade, one with foam shaped like a heart. And the comments. God, the comments. They weren't romantic. Not directly. But they were layered in a kind of coded affection. She wrote things like, "You always knew how to find the light." And he'd respond with, "Only because you brought it with you." To anyone else, maybe it sounded poetic. Harmless. To me, it was handwriting on a love letter you were never meant to read. When I got home, she was on the couch, legs tucked under her, reading. She looked up, smiled, and said, "You're back early." I nodded, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I'd missed her. It wasn't a lie. That's the cruelest part. I still loved her. I still wanted to believe there was a version of this story where she'd just gotten lost and was trying to find her way back to me. But love doesn't fix fractures. It just teaches you how to live with them. That night, I stayed up and did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I logged into the email she'd used for the burner account. I'd guessed the password. She used my birthday. There were drafts. Not sent. Not even saved in the inbox. Just there, like thoughts she'd typed out and abandoned. One stood out. It was a letter to Eli. "Eli, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I still love him, I think. Or maybe I just love who we used to be. But when I'm around you, I feel seen. I don't have to explain myself. With him, it's like I'm constantly apologizing for who I'm not anymore. I know this isn't fair. To you. To him. To me. But part of me wonders if maybe love changes. Maybe it splits. And maybe we're not meant to only have one great love. I don't know. I'm sorry. I just needed to say it somewhere." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Not because she said she loved him. She didn't. But because in that entire message, she never once used my name. Just him. That's how far I'd slipped from the center of her world. I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and finally let the truth settle in. In the days that followed, I stopped asking questions I didn't want the answers to. Instead, I started noticing things. Small things. How often she smiled at her phone. How quickly she minimized windows when I entered the room. How she flinched when I said, "us," in future tense. And I started asking myself the question that really mattered. Not, is she still seeing him? But, why am I still here? The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was the erasure. The slow realization that somewhere along the way, I'd become the background noise in a life she was rewriting without me. One night, I stood in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, and she walked in behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist, rested her chin on my shoulder. She whispered, "You've been quiet lately." I nodded. She asked, "Are we okay?" And I almost said yes. I almost gave her the out, the safety net, the lie we'd both been living inside. But then I looked at her reflection, really looked, and I saw someone I didn't recognize. Not because she'd changed, but because I had. And the version of me that still belonged in her world was already gone. Next came the final piece. The discovery that cracked the rest wide open. Because a few nights later, she left her phone on the kitchen counter when she ran upstairs to grab laundry. It buzzed once. Then again. Then again. Curious, I glanced. The lock screen lit up with a message from someone saved under the name April. But April didn't talk like a woman. She said things like, "Can't stop thinking about last time," and "next time, no more holding back." So I tapped the message, and I saw a photo. Eli, smiling, lying next to her in a bed I didn't recognize. The caption? "Still the best mistake I ever made." I didn't react, didn't yell, didn't cry, just walked to the sink, turned on the faucet, and let the sound of rushing water drown out the last remnants of denial. It was done. Now I just had to decide what I wanted to do with the truth. I didn't leave right away. I know that might disappoint some people. The idea of storming out, of slamming doors, of tossing her phone into the wall, there's a certain satisfaction in imagining it. A catharsis. But I didn't want catharsis. I wanted clarity. So I waited. For a week, I lived alongside her like nothing had changed. I kissed her goodnight. I made dinner. I folded laundry. But inside, I was moving, quietly, strategically. I copied everything. The messages, the photos, the burner account. I archived it all onto a drive labeled House Projects and tucked it inside the junk drawer where she never looked. I met with a lawyer 2 towns over. A woman named Marcia. Calm, efficient, blunt. She looked at the folder I handed her and said, "You've got enough here to make it clean." I told her I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted out. She nodded. "Then let's do this right." The night before I left, we had dinner. Just the 2 of us. Candlelight, wine, soft music, her idea. She was trying. Or pretending to. Halfway through the meal, she reached across the table and said, "I feel like we're getting better. Don't you?" I looked at her, and for a second, I almost believed her. That was her gift. After all, she could make any lie sound like a vow. I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, "Do you love me?" She froze. The silence between us felt like a verdict. I care about you," she said finally. That was all I needed to hear. At dawn, I packed. Not a dramatic exit. Just a suitcase, my laptop, the folder, and a note. She found it 2 hours later. I know, because she called me 33 times in a row. I didn't answer. The note was simple. "You whispered his name in your sleep, but I heard everything else in your silence. I didn't leave because you lied. I left because you forgot who I was. Don't reach out. Don't apologize. This isn't revenge. This is me choosing myself for the first time in years." Later that day, Marcia served her the papers. According to her assistant, my wife sat on the floor for over an hour, just staring at them. She texted once, "Please, let's talk. We can fix this." I stared at the message, then archived it, because some things can be mended, and some are meant to be left exactly as they are, cracked, silent, unfinished. It's been 6 months. I moved to a small town by the coast. Different pace, different rhythm. I wake up to the sound of waves now, not whispered lies. Some mornings I still think of her, not out of longing, just memory, like an echo in an old hallway you no longer walk through. I started running again, cooking for myself, writing. And last week, I deleted the drive, not out of forgiveness, but because I don't need proof anymore. The wound isn't who I am. It's just something I walked through. And him, Eli? He's not my villain. He's just a chapter in her story I was never supposed to read. But I did. And now, I'm writing my own.